Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. So, yeah, I feel that this thing here is holding back our streamer sound by a lot. I'm going to go into a bit more detail about that. So this is basically the power supply, probably a standard power supply for a streamer, I would guess. They would typically have something like this. A really long cord, crappy sticks, not sticks, plugs, sticks in Danish. Stick, and yeah, things like this just kill sound, and typically that's why we go over to having cables like this with linear power supplies like this. And yeah, that is definitely a step up, and it can get a lot better than that. But I'm just saying that. That's probably how it would look inside. When we have these cables here, these DC cables, we connect this end to here and the other end to the streamer. Just look at how pathetic. This isn't just a Teradac thing. This is the market standard of plugs. You use something that costs 10 cents to produce here, 10 cents to produce here in China. Then you have to have a plus and a minus on a cable like this where they're extremely close to each other. You can't isolate them properly, so you can't beef up the cable. That is a problem, because when you have a cord like this that's 1.5 or 2 meters long, you've basically killed your sound, and you're not going to hear even 20% of what this power supply is able to do. And then on top of that, if you have a standard $1 cable, forget it, it's just going to be dead sound, especially if it's a short cable. No, especially if it's a long cable and a standard cable. But let me get into more specifics here. Most people that use an LPSU for their streamer, they will only use one of the lower qualities of LPSUs, because they only have a couple of $100, not a couple of $1,000 to use. So from the get-go, you're already into a very bad zone of sound where you can't really milk a huge amount of potential. And what I'm saying in this video is that on top of that problem, we have to deal with this giant problem that we have some really bad quality apparatus plugs here where we connect our DC cable, when they're just not. There isn't a lot of room in those cables to make those cables really good. And all I'm asking the industry is, if you want to create a company that's going to make streaming a hell of a lot better, start looking into stuff like this. Make some decent plugs so we don't all have to use these 10-cent plugs. And make some decent cables that have, again, a decent plug here, and just room for like 3, 5, 10 times the amount of cable, because that's going to make whatever power supply that you have, it's just going to get so much closer to maxing it out and give you a much more warm and natural sound. And I would like to see something like some really, probably something like an XLR plug instead of these DC plugs. And I would like to see some XLR plugs that aren't like the regular XLR plugs, but actually bigger than those, so you can have some proper thick cable inside. Or so you just can experiment with a lot of different cables. But currently we're not really able to do that in this age that we live in. We have so much focus on the streamer itself, the DAC, the amplifier, the speaker, and everything. This is what we're looking at here is like the core of the sound. So streaming, when you look at the core of the sound, we're talking about the streamer. And if you don't have a proper power supply, or if you have a proper power supply and you can't, connect it with proper power because you're using this flimsy solution here, companies have to start to look into that. We've got the ability to make power cords that have a proper amount of current that they can send through back and forward, because there's physically room for that. Even on power cords, it does get very tricky getting a proper amount of cable through that physically will fit. And I think that we have to, in this industry, look for solutions that make it possible to use better quality plugs, better quality cables, keep those cables shorter so you don't have so much noise. And I think that if we can just get down to this, I would say around 50 centimeter area here. It's not going to be very practical for a lot of people having this so close to wherever you get your power from, but again, I've heard it at my friend's place. It just makes the sound a hell of a lot more stable, which gives a lot better timing, and you just know exactly what's going on in the system, so you don't get this sort of flimsy normal digital type of streaming sound that we're all used to hearing. So yeah, a bit of help for the industry. You want to fix streaming, fix this. Instead of you possibly using, I don't know, $5, $10, $15,000 on really good LPSUs, yes, that is a good idea when you have a pretty good system and a very good streamer. But you also really want to look into these DC cables, because these LPSUs are not worth a lot if you're just using the standard cables that come with these LPSUs. Yes, there are some very, very, very few exceptions to the rule where I think JCAT or Uptone Audio, they make some pretty decent cables. But yeah, we need to up our LPSU DC cable game. It's not good enough. That is holding our streaming sound way, way, way back compared to where it should be. So I hope this helps you guys, and it's just as a inspiration for you guys in case you want to get more out of your LPSU. You have to then manually start figuring out, okay, how can you do this? How can you perhaps get a hold of a certain manufacturer that has a certain bigger type of plug so you can use some better cable? I know that there probably are possibilities within this world. I haven't been able to find it, but I'm just saying this is where you need to look if you really want to make a huge difference on your streamer sound without necessarily having to use a lot of money. So yeah, that's me logging off. Have a nice day. Bye.